Hello and welcome, everyone. My name is Brian Smith, and I am the publisher at Inside the Knights on Fan Nation, powered by Sports Illustrated. And this is my podcast, The Daily Knight. And today I'm going to talk about the transfer portal and how it's going to impact games like the UCF and Florida game and the Gasparilla Bowl, as well as many other bowl games around college football, as many top players opt out of their opportunity to play in a bowl game and forego it to get into the NFL draft and start training just a little bit earlier. Here are a couple of updates. Just looking at a screen here with some of the lists. Jacob Copeland, University of Florida, just announced yesterday that he is not going to play against the Knights, as the Gators star receiver is going to forego it in opportunities for the NFL draft are awaiting him. He had 39 catches for 604 yards and 4 scores this season for Florida. He's a very productive player, 6 foot, 202 pounds. That's the kind of guy that you do not want to lose going into a bowl game. And it also begs the question, what other Florida players are going to do the same? He's just one. Right now, it is the 10th of December. The game is not until the 23rd. And for a lot of other players, it's not until the very, very end of December or in January. That means the following. We're going to see a bunch, and I mean a bunch, of different players jump into the opportunity to forgo. And probably the next 3 to 5 days is going to be the majority of it. Between now and Sunday, there'll be a few, but Monday, Tuesday next week, I look for a bunch. Kids got to make a final decision. Their opportunities with academics are pretty much done. Most guys are finishing up finals right now on Friday. And that means, hey, what am I going to do? Sit down with your family, talk with your mom, your girlfriend, whatever it may be. What decision do I want to make? Do I want to risk being injured, playing in one more bowl game, or just game in general for Florida or UNLV or any other school that might be in a bowl game this year? What's going to happen? Florida is just one of numerous schools that have to worry about this, and it messes up so many things. And I'll talk about that in just a second. But here's the list. Arguably the top player for this next year's NFL draft. Most people anticipated this. Kayvon Thibodeaux at Oregon. He's a California kid. Went to Oregon, had a very successful 3-year career for the Ducks. He's a pure pass rusher. And of course, that's a coveted position. Defensive ends, man, you just cannot have enough of them. Just can't. This guy is very long. He's 250 pounds, 260 pounds, whatever it is. And he can come off the edge screaming like a DB. His quick twitch is special. I get it. I see why he's leaving. A couple of other interesting players that have announced, Danny Gray and Reggie Roberson from SMU. A lot of people don't talk about SMU because it's not Power 5. Those guys can play. I'm not shocked that they're going to do that. They have no chance at a national title. They're not playing in a quote-unquote major bowl game. Some of the guys in the G5 level, especially for you gamblers out there, good luck to you. Do not make a decision until about 5 minutes before a game before you bet. You don't know who's going to opt out. Somebody could opt out the day before a game. Don't laugh. That could happen. Stranger things do transpire in college football. So bet with your mind, not with your heart. So Gray and Roberson, that's also a microcosm. Again, that's not even Power 5 guys, but they're good enough to play in the NFL, and they're opting out. Keep that in mind. Jacob Copeland for Florida is the really unique player for me, though. He opted out on Thursday. The Gators, they need that kind of production. 39 catches, 604 yards, 4 touchdowns. Emory Jones is a turnover machine when you put pressure on him, etc. Now you take a player away from him when they play UCF in the bowl game. That's a tough situation for them. How does that impact the rest of the roster? Does Dameon Pierce play? That's another guy that could opt out. Does there seem to be a situation where other guys want to step up? How many other players for the Gators leave? It impacts in a numerous different ways, and everybody has to make an impact in a different manner. They're going to play more reps. They might play a new position. They might be involved with new packages. Remember, the Gators, just as an example for all these teams, they're in the midst of a coaching change. They barely have any assistant coaches right now, and they're playing in 13 days. That could be a disaster. Maybe it works out, but losing a player like Copeland, and again, this is just a big, bold overview, you're not going to do well losing star guys that make people miss and can high point the football in the end zone. That's not going to work out well in general. I don't care what other guys step up. That being stated, at least is an opportunity to see some younger guys. And Justin Shorter is a heck of a receiver, too. He was their number 2, big body guy, 220 plus pounds for the Gators. Maybe he comes out and plays well. Maybe Emory Jones settles down and doesn't force the football as much too. And maybe they just focus on running the ball. Oregon, though, that's really unfortunate. They were going to go against Oklahoma. All the turnover, both schools going through coaching changes. That was kind of wild. I thought he would opt out, but I wanted to see him play against Oklahoma. They're very well coached on the offensive line. They have arguably the best offensive line coach in the country at the University of Oklahoma. So keep that in mind. And there's also the situation with just seeing him go against good athletes in general one more time. I think it would have improved his draft stock, but I understand, hey, I don't want to risk being injured. I want to focus just on getting ready for the combine. Maybe I can be a top 5 pick. Maybe I can even be the number 1 pick. So good luck to Thibodeaux. He's a great football player. The last thing I want to mention before going into segment 2 and giving you a question is this. Which player or players is going to shock you? Like, for instance, Roberson and Gray, the receivers for SMU. Good football players. I saw them play this year against UCF. Is there going to be a guy for a school? It could be Florida. It could be anybody else. It could be just about any school. Maybe a guy that was at Ohio State, thought he was going to the playoffs, fringe guy to NFL, opts out. Wouldn't shock me. Wouldn't shock me at all. Same thing with Oklahoma State. They're playing Notre Dame. That's a big deal. But they're not in the playoff. Who opts out that's right on that fringe? That's for me. But for you, is there somebody that for your favorite school, you're like, man, he won't opt out. But will he or will he not? Again, over the next 4 or 5 days, you're going to see an exodus, an absolute exodus of college football players get up and get out and look to get paid. Agree or disagree, this is the NIL era. This is the era of finding a way to support one in a manner that they can't do otherwise, and they're going to look out for themselves first and foremost. So with that, here's my additional question for you. College football doesn't have an answer for this, and it creates a lot of dilemmas for these different bowl committees and everything, because they need the way the bowls work just to be completely open, except for the playoffs. The bowl games are about matchups that create money, beginning and end. I've had conversations with guys that have run bowls, that have been on the bowl committees. It is flat out, unequivocally about how do we generate revenue. They want teams to come from out of state because they want hotels to get filled. They want restaurants to get filled. They deal with the local, like the city of Jacksonville or the city of Phoenix, etc., places that have bowl games. They need people to come in and spend money, large amounts of it. They do not want in-state teams by and large, unless it's a team that's, top 5 or whatever. But even then, it's kind of iffy. Like Florida State, if they play a noon game in a bowl game and it's in Miami, the fans will go to the game. They'll drive right back to Northern Florida. They don't want them. How do these teams, now that they're selected, they're kind of stuck. How do they generate revenue to the fullest when fans are, based on what this podcast is about, they're like, I'm going to wait and buy the tickets just a little bit later. I want to see who leaves. Is there a way for them to do that? Or is it just push and just move forward and it is what it is? I've thought long and hard about that, but I'm not sure there's a way to sell tickets in hotels and all that in advance at the same level. And I haven't seen any research on it because this really just started in the last 5 years or so. But if that's the case, and there's not a lot of ways to do it, it could impact how bowls select, and they could change the criteria, almost forcing it to be out of state because they've got to have as much revenue. The bowls get some money from the local, chapter in Miami or whatever. They get a chunk of it based on it. There's different deals that are done. Every different bowl game is select opportunity. But without all that money coming in, the bowls are going to suffer, and they're going to suffer a lot. You're not going to see stadiums packed. They want to see players, the best players. If the best players aren't playing, those bowls are in trouble. So, segment 2. This is something I'm just going to use from the UCF and Florida standpoint. And it's one that, quite frankly, I don't think there's any way to make this work either. It's similar to what I was just talking about with the bowl committees, actually. When you're short-staffed, like Billy Napier is for the Gators, how do you prepare for a bowl game, have a guy like Copeland opt out? And then also get your staff ready when you really don't have one. Although they did just get Corey Raymond from LSU, which is a horrible job by LSU. Horrific. Losing him is going to cost them mightily in recruiting over the next 3 to 5 years. When you have that scenario, what's the best way to go about it? Do you just stay out of the way? Does Napier leave the bowl game alone? Does he throw a little bit of input and let them deal with it? I'm sure whether he's on the sidelines or not, and I haven't even looked into it, there's no good answer. But what's the best possible answer? There, again, if you don't have a full staff that's working on this all the time, it's not good. And that's where Florida's at. Billy's smart. If he just takes his time and gets the hiring right, I have no problem with that. But I'm just talking about the bowl game against UCF. And like it or not, and it's unfair to Billy, but this is the way the world works. Perception and donations go hand in hand. Under no circumstance will Florida fans accept losing to UCF. They will not. They could have 5 players on the roster. They would not accept it. Florida fans in general have a very high opinion of their program, regardless of record. And by the way, they were 6-6 this year and needed to beat Florida State just to make a bowl game. They're not very good. But at the same time, they have a talented roster that's just jumbled up. A lot of guys disgruntled, not happy with the coaching staff. Can they get them ready? Again, I don't even know who the coaches are going to be for this game. It's crazy. So look for Coach Napier to name a few more guys because, I mean, he has to. You can't just put 3 coaches out there for the bowl game or put several more that are basically on their way out. You don't want that either. I mean, they could technically put on a headset. That doesn't mean they have any interest. If you're firing them, yeah, they're not going to be real interested in what you do. So keep that in mind. Now, here's the other piece with that. The players have to like who you bring in too. And I know part of this, it's kind of the underbelly of college football. In today's world, when a coach brings in a new staff, or even just part of it, and Napier may not have his entire staff filled out till January. It's hard to say. The college coaching convention is in early January every year. It's where guys meet up. They talk about different things. Hey, I like this, schematically, recruiting, this is where I want to live, blah, blah, blah. That's where coaches get hired a lot of the time. He may wait to do a little bit of that in January. But even so, if he ticks off the current roster, fair or not, with who he hires in the meantime, you could see A, opt-outs, B, guys just are not being interested. And then the final sum of that is you get your butt kicked in the bowl game when they go to Tampa and play in the Gasparilla Bowl against UCF. Billy Napier is in a horrific spot short term. That's the only thing I'm saying here, just for the month of December. Now, I don't know what Florida fans expect, but again, what I just said, most Florida fans will have blinders on. They don't study it like I do. They don't study it like a lot of the experts do in Vegas, etc. What he's up against right here, and several other coaches around college football, they're in staffs. Brian Kelly at LSU, the situation that Notre Dame's in, like they got lucky. They hired from within. So they're kind of the one exception out of the powers. They hired from within. No big deal. But everybody else, LSU, Southern Cal's, I mean, I don't even know what they would want to do with the bowl game if they had it. But, you know, that's total turnover there with Lincoln Riley. You have a situation at Oklahoma. You're bringing a new coordinator, Jeff Levy. You're bringing in a new head coach from Clemson, etc. They're in a bowl game. That is hard. You're going to have players that are ticked off that the head coach left. You're going to have players that are ticked off at the administration. They didn't hire the guy you wanted, the assistant coach you wanted, etc. How do you manage it? It's a disastrous situation short term. For Florida, this is what I'm going to guess is going to happen. You're going to have 2 things for the Gators. And this has nothing to do with UCF. It's just part of it. Number one, a guy like Emory Jones. He's a quarterback that has been up and down this year. He's a turnover machine more than he should be. He's got a cannon for an arm. He's a freak athlete, but he just makes the colossal mistake. That's the history of Emory Jones in Gainesville. If he plays well in this bowl game, maybe he comes back. Maybe he doesn't. But he could go in the transfer portal after. Somebody's going to take him. I mean, he's got upside that's crazy. This game's important to him. He wants to prove to guys like me who don't have any faith in him. I don't. Something about him, I just don't trust him in clutch moments. Against quality competition, against lesser teams, he can light it up. But against really good teams, he's inconsistent, especially in clutch moments. If he goes out and plays really hard and does well, it will not surprise me at all. running or passing or both. But what about some of the other guys? Can he make up for that? And can Anthony Richardson make up for that? This is my one prediction for the game. I have no idea who's going to win because I don't know who's going to play yet. Not even thinking about the victory for either team. I'm not even going to think about it until about the 21st because some of the guys could change their mind on whether they are or not going to play. The biggest thing for me, Anthony Richardson making an impact in the game and supplementing Emory Jones. Richardson needs to say, hey, this is my team, or do something, or make it. Maybe he makes some kind of statement in terms of playing different positions. I don't know what Florida's coaching staff's going to do with him. And again, we don't even know who's going to coach for Florida. But for anybody that has not seen Anthony Richardson play this year, that's on you. He is one of the most spectacular players in the game of football at either the college or pro level, because somebody that big, being that fast and that nimble, and having that good a vision as a runner. Just forget about the passing the ball. He's got a cannon for an arm too. His ability to run the football at that size is tremendous. He is as much a freak of nature as Florida's had, and I don't even know how many years, because usually they're really skillful athletes are more the 200-pound or less range, like most schools. He's 230, 240, somewhere in that range. His skill level is incredible. I'm curious to see if Napier just says, turn him loose, let's just see what happens. He may or may not have much influence on the game, but if I'm Napier, you have to play him, and you want to see him really get a chance to spin it and run it. So that's something to think about. To wrap this up, I just want to say that it's unfortunate that the bowl games are kind of getting the raw end of the deal here. I don't really know if they can do anything about it. Players want to get paid, and they want to secure the opportunity to do so being healthy going into the combine. It's very helpful to do that. I just don't know if there's anything they can do about it short term. And I'm sure that all these bowl committees talk with each other and try to come up with an idea. Hey, what can we do to give fans the best product possible and to sell as many tickets, TV be as good as possible, all the restaurants and the hotels get as filled as possible, etc. But it is a very tough thing to do. And again, there's only a few guys that have opted out. And I forgot to mention Treylon Burks from Arkansas, great football player. He's not playing for Arkansas. That completely changes their lineup. And just another example. You cannot make up for guys like that. So this is me wrapping it up. Brian Smith, Inside the Knights, and this is my podcast, The Daily Knight. I am back in Tampa. I'll be publishing something at least once a day, and I'm going to be doing a lot of bowl previews. I'll be doing a few days where I'll do some extras on some of the bigger bowls as we get close to them and get right around Christmas. So be sure to check that out on my YouTube page. I'm going to be having some fun with that. I'll announce some more in the next couple of days about what my schedule is going to be for that. I got a lot of research to do, a lot of film to watch. So everybody be safe. Have a great day, and thank you very much.